participants. All right, welcome, and good morning to everyone. I thank you guys for making this week's movie review. Starting from the very top, the Black Gold Nation presents Cinematic Connections for Revolutionary Change, an engaging, enlightening, and entertaining assessment of movies as it relates to the forward progress of Black people in America, Africa, and the diaspora. What is the Black Gold Nation movement? The Black Gold Nation movement is an international organization that seeks to liberate and save Black people by establishing our own towns/cities whereby we control the environment to make our people bigger, better, and stronger. Our contention in this movement, the supporters, members, leaders, ambassadors, we believe that when we allow, and history has proven, when we allow other people to control our environment, we lose, period. When we allow other people to control any aspect, any system within that environment, we always find ourselves on the bottom of that system, regardless if it's the educational system, the health system, the political system, the agricultural system, the security system, the spiritual systems. Whenever we allow other people to control our entire space or any aspect of that space, we either lose entirely or we find ourselves on the bottom of those systems. And unfortunately for us, other people have controlled and are controlling, and other people do control our spaces and our systems, which is why we're in the position that we're in. But conversely, history has proven, both since we've been here as well as before we got here, that we most certainly have the ability to do our own thing and control our own space. And if we do not want to become a permanent underclass, we need to get back to that. Why we came to be, based on the understandings, teachings, practices, and strategies, of past and current organizations that our leadership had lived, studied, and or taught, and the need to continue doing, we build upon the successes minus the mistakes, to provide our people solutions that work now, to implement a 100-year plan to build power. So what we're trying to do is study, understand, respect, and honor all of those righteous brothers and sisters who have come before us to try and do things that we Black people needed to be done. Unfortunately, their work, all of their work, was not completed. Of course, they all had successes, which is why we have to study, learn, and understand those successes. But they also made some mistakes, and we have to study and understand what those mistakes are so that we don't make them. But most importantly, since that righteous work has yet to be completed, still needs to be done, it is on us, brothers and sisters who are alive or well in 2021 moving forward, to pick up the baton and run our leg of the race as best we can, as we learn, as we study, as we understand, so that we can build upon their successes, but again, not make those mistakes. And we want to do that so that we can remove our people from always being behind the 8 ball. Black people are reactionary to everything because we don't mobilize, organize, and have power to stop anything. So what we're saying in this movement is that if we're going to remove ourselves from being behind the 8 ball, then we got to put ourselves in a position to not just be the cue ball, the white ball, but the pool stick. And that we hit the cue ball, it hits the 8 ball, and whatever happens after that happens to somebody else, not because we got lucky, not because white people cut us a break, not because our nonprofit is doing well, but because we planned for it 5, 10, 15, 25, 50, 75 years prior. And most importantly, what we plan for has to be for the next 100 years so that we can build power. And we have to raise our children in a fashion to not only understand that you are not going to trade school or college to get a job. You're going to trade school or college to run a municipality to ensure that the power your people have, you can build upon it, expand it, and grow it. So what we're doing, of course, we're doing for our people now today, as we lay a foundation for the next 100 years. But most importantly, we want our children to not only benefit, but be in a position to add their 100-year plan onto what we do today, so that as a people, we are always 100 years out. All right, Brother Craig, that's the intro. It is on you, brother, to talk about this documentary part 4 of Plutocracy.
Good morning to everybody. I bring you greetings from the phenomenal city of Monroe, Louisiana. I had to come over for a business meeting last night. So instead of getting on the road, this morning and going through dead zones, I said I'll go ahead and do this, and then hit the road and get back to Shreveport, which is only a little bit over an hour, headed west on I-20. So this particular film, just like the other three episodes of Plutocracy, is absolutely powerful. And as always, before I before I get into the subject matter this morning of the film, I like to get a perspective from everybody what they thought about the film. So, as always, let's get started. Give me a little overview of what you thought about the film, each person on the call.
Well, I'll start. This is Tara. It focused a lot, of course, on strikes and labor, as most of them have. And there were a few things that kind of stood out for me. One of them was the role that like women played when they were talking about prohibition and then prohibition reform. They really pointed out the role of some of the Christian quote unquote women and the elitist and racist positions that they took, but they were a part of prohibition and then with the reform piece. And, learning that the Treasury Department was responsible for poisoning the alcohol to prevent bootlegging.
Right.
That, killed like 10,000 people. I was like, oh my gosh, they were really serious about people not drinking. That was a big freaking deal. And then just the advent of organized crime, because without the alcohol, it seemed to be an increase in theft and drug use and homicide, and it seemed like it would have been just easier to let people drink. Um, and then, they touched on the change in technology and brought out, Taylorism and Fordism, and how they really tried to de-skill workers to control, what they did in certain elements of the business that they could understand, so that they could, then manage their wages or pay them less, and then take the power from the workers. So I thought that was really interesting how they try to change the work environment. And with Ford developing the sociology department, which was interesting, to then go into the workers' homes to see like how they were spending their money and spying on them. And really, I mean, they had some serious control issues in trying to dictate, beyond the life of the employee, just beyond the workplace. Um, And let me see, one other thing that stood out, because they, talked a lot about strikes and how unsuccessful they were, in calling in the National Guard and the militia. But then there was at one point with the Hormel company where they asked the governor to call in the National Guard, and he actually refused, and that kind of turned the tide in the favor of the workers to force arbitration and get increased wages. But, to learn later, years later, that same governor folded and called in the National Guard on the workers. Um, but then the Teamsters ended up winning. So I think even trying to stand up against it from a governor's perspective, he even folded at one point. And I was pleased to see how they brought out the works of Hugh in New Orleans and all the good that he, did for the state, only to be murdered by a doctor because he was a threat to the reelection of Roosevelt. So that just kind of speaks to the power at the top and how it can come down and grab you and just kind of take you out. And there were a couple quotes that stood out. One is that we're naive to depend on the forces of government to protect us. I thought was interesting in reference to the textile strike failures. And then they ended with a quote toward the end that power concedes nothing without demand. So you really have to have your demands in place if you want power to concede, because they're just not going to give it to you. And that was it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Next.
All right, I'll go next. So I think I kind of typed out like a couple of quotes, but I think I'll probably just pick two, and just to springboard off what's already been said. But so the first one was from Frederick. I think his first name was Frederick Taylor. Um, and I don't know his exact quote, but he basically was saying that I guess his approach was to go in a factory and see like one of the hardest working people, see what they do, and they go home, and then he was, I guess, impressed that, well, maybe disappointed that one guy was, he had enough energy to not only work but then go home and build his own house. So the strategy was to raise his pay so he can have somebody else build his house. And so I thought that was interesting, because I know I've had some experience with an employer being interested in what I'm doing after work and trying to control and say, hey, well, we're gonna pay you more. We want to make sure that you're dedicated. And so I've personally had that experience, and it was very shocking to me. But so I just say that to say it still goes on. And also, there was one soldier. I don't know his name. I didn't catch his name, but this one soldier, I guess he was like a career soldier / police officer or something. And he said, like, toward the end of his career that he had spent his life being a gangster and a racketeer for capitalism.
General Butler.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. And yeah, I thought when that scene came on, I immediately thought of the military / police officer that killed himself this week.
Yeah.
And because I just actually watched his like suicide video this morning, and he was talking about basically the same thing, that he feels. Well, to be fair, he didn't say that he personally felt like he was involved in police brutality, but of course his profession is steeped in it. And so that's kind of part of the reason why he committed suicide. But yeah, so those are just a couple of things that just stood out to me when I was viewing. So that's it.
Yeah. I guess I'll go. I was as usual blown away by not just the impressive nature of the protesters and the picketers and the workers, their bravery to fight back, and the discovery and usage of dynamite. And how they were using that thing on both sides. I was impressed with that. But as usual, as we see time and time again, they call out the guard, they call out the militia. The federal government steps up and they squash the people's efforts to have a decent life worth living. And I couldn't help but wonder, and thank goodness the end was what it was, because for most of it, as I was watching, I'm thinking, okay, well, what is the answer? But of course, it all came back to grassroots mobilization and organization. And I was extremely, I'm not sure if pride is the right word I can use, but I was impressed with how everybody came together. Different groups came together to ensure that the workers and strikers were taken care of, from the women to the farmers. Everybody did their part to ensure that the strike continued. Even unemployed people were helping the employed. So I was extremely impressed with that, and I was most certainly throughout it taking notes, because as we launched this power program to take over the 5 mile radius of Brother Lloyd's store, I learned a few things that I'm going to start doing from this video. So as usual, it was eye opening. It was telling, and it was excellent. So I enjoyed it.
Cool. Rakim?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. I've been working on these settings since the last Zoom. um, I was trying to let Sister Fabu and all of the females go first. Um, I would yield the floor to Sister Fabu if she wanted to say something right quick.
Cool.
No, I don't have anything new to add. Ditto to all that's been said.
Okay. With that said, I'll just make mine very quick. Um, I, these segments of videos are bringing us more and more. If when you stitch them all together, and I can't wait to get to the next one. Um, if a person sit down and really watch this, they'll get a true understanding of what's going on right today.
Exactly.
I mean, everything that's going on in these segments of actually reflecting the constant rotation. It's like the Bible would say, there's nothing new under the sun.
It's a cycle,
Man,
man.
this is a
Right,
bomb.
right.
This is a bomb. It's a wonder they didn't go back and assassinate these people who made this documentary, because it is powerful.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just take this one segment out of the whole film. I don't want to get ahead of anything or whatever, but I had to sit down on this one, because when I saw, particularly in the past administration, people like Steve Mnuchin, the
Yeah.
treasury, okay, and I could see his whole demeanor and whole state of mind inside of what Andrew Mellon, the Treasury Secretary under Hoover, when we went into depression,
Yeah.
certain capitalists loved that thing.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna just say this quote that he said, and I'm gonna get up off of it and get, because I wanted to go into succession of the film. It will purge the rottenness of the
Mm,
system.
mm.
Yeah.
People will, what did it say? People will work harder,
Yeah.
live a moral life.
Yeah.
Values will be adjusted,
Yeah.
and this is what really set me down on the stool.
They
And
believe
the
it.
enterprising people
Yes,
will
sir.
pick up the wrecks from the less competent people.
Yes.
Who the hell do they think they can sit there and dictate
Jeez.
who is competent and who is not, with all the immorality and love of money that goes on into this system? So a lot of things like you see in the stock market, things that are happening, man, they don't care about that stuff. They love it because they got their money. The plutocrats and aristocrats got their money, you know. But it's just that the controlling through racial divides that you see today, and all it just comes out. It just materializes. I'm gonna have to back up off of it from there, because it's a bomb. That's all I can say. This is the bomb.
And
Yeah.
brother Ken, to that point, I couldn't help but, as always, think about our people who really think that you're going to prove white people wrong because you
Hmm.
Yeah.
got the data and the information to get your reparations, and they simply don't understand. Like Tara said, I think it was Tara that said it. The quote that brother Craig gives often of Frederick Douglass: "Power concedes
Hmm.
nothing without a demand, and after you demand it, you got to have a plan to go get it,
Yeah.
That's right.
because they're not gonna give it to you.
Mm.
To hell with your righteousness."
Right.
And sometimes they get violent.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to be willing to meet them in the street and say, "Let's go."
Yeah.
So they're gonna do what they're gonna do.
Yeah. Well, all of y'all, as usual, gave some good overviews. So let's get into the film. One of the most profound things that I like about these producers and directors of these episodes of Plutocracy, they give you a movie within the first few minutes of the film.
I know, right? It's like, man, that was the intro? 18 minutes.
I have 2.5 pages of notes from the intro, which was 14 minutes long. So let's get into this. This video starts September the 16th, 1920 in New York, and they're setting the stage for an explosion that's gonna happen in front of J.P. Morgan Chase. 100 pounds of dynamite was being carried to the front of the J.P. Morgan Chase building in New York City on Wall Street. And this is one of the things that Tamani likes to hit on with these pseudo solutions that these folks come up with. And do you all remember what this is called? This anarchist tactic that used violence to try to make their point. Y'all know what that
propaganda by deed.
Propaganda by deed.
We're gonna propagandize you with some action.
Propaganda.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, okay.
Propaganda by the deed. Now there's another name that this one historian said that it is called. Did y'all pick up on that? It's another name. It was just mentioned briefly when he was talking about the Italian anarchists, the Gallianists. The other name for the propaganda by the deed is the single spark.
Oh yeah.
The single spark.
Right.
And the whole concept is that it would just take a single spark to light all of the working class people in the world to rebel against the philosophy, the architects, the engineers, and managers of the philosophy, system, and game of capitalistic white supremacy. Of course, as the film pointed out, this was an ill-fated revolutionary strategy. Propaganda by the deed, the single spark premise, any of the tactical maneuvers that the anarchists believed in, they were ill-fated. However, they were necessary. And the reason they were necessary was for what we're doing today in the 21st century, which is to create the only legitimate solution and strategy, which is the empowerment strategy, spiritually, culturally, educationally, economically, socially, politically, whereby you create culture social entrepreneurs and you enlighten people who will be workers to really learn what this game truly is. And so it's important from a historical standpoint to be able to show the plutocrats the extremes that grassroots people will go to. Although that's not going to solve anything, it is important that they know that that's possible. So that kind of keeps them in check to some degree within that. And I like how they then pivoted to now not only showing what happened in 1920, but now going back 50 years earlier in 1871, okay? to show what happened where? In Paris, France. Do you all remember what they, when 2 million grassroots people, workers, mobilized and organized, and they got together to elect delegates from their ranks to represent their interests in the government versus the politicians. The grassroots people say, shit, we just gonna transform this. Mm-hmm. And the premise was everyone, no matter how poor, had a say in how to run their society.
That's right.
So they kind of figured out to some degree what I put in place, starting at local government. They just didn't have the full thing figured out, but they knew that they needed people from their ranks, from their ranks, because it didn't matter that people looked like them. They needed to have their shared experiences. They needed to have some skin in the game. They needed to get this out of the mud. Now, do you all remember what that is called? That movement was called?
Oh, yeesh. I remember that too. I took notes on that.
The Paris Commune?
Yeah, the Paris Commune. Yeah. And so this was a great exercise in the mobilization and organization of workers in 1871, and it took place in Paris, France. But unfortunately, the experiment, as they said, was brutally crushed. And who was it brutally crushed by?
The federal government.
Police. Yeah, the police.
Not the police.
Well, the government.
Yeah, the federal government, yeah.
They brought in who?
Brought in the troops.
It was the National Guard, right?
No, well, in Paris, France, at that time.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
But the military.
Yeah.
And so so this becomes a very important theme as we go through each one of these situations. The government brings in who? The military, whether it be the National Guard, overall military in general, but they bring them in. So go back to the last Plutocracy. It was the last, or it was either the second or the third. I think it was the third one, where the author said, no, it was one of the presidents. I'll bring the notes out. He said, yeah, this is no longer a government, which it never was, a government of the people, by the people, for the people. But he said it's the government of who? Corporations.
Corporations, by corporations, for corporations.
Yeah.
That's right.
This is what this game is throughout the world.
From day one.
From day one. So you better understand this when you get engaged. So it went on to say that in the Paris Commune, after the revolution was crushed, the government murdered tens of thousands of Persians. And I imagine that the goddamn Persians, which are our cousins, I guess they were the ones influencing the damn French to get busy and come up with these crazy ideas of equity and justice and fairness. How dare you try to go against what we say? And Karl Marx, man, I had to write this quote down because, bruh, this quote was so cold-blooded. Karl Marx described the Paris Commune massacre in the following way, and this is a reference to the Plutocracy. He says he describes the Plutocracy as the civilization injustice of the bourgeois order. So he says the civilization injustice of bourgeois order comes out in its lurid light whenever the slaves and the drudges, the bottom of the barrel, rise against their masters, then the civilization injustice stands forth, listen to this, as undisguised. We ain't gonna even disguise it no more. As undisguised savagery and lawless revenge. Yeah, dang. Because at a point, the plutocrats ain't gonna play with you no more. See, they'll play the civilization game and to a degree.
To a degree.
But at a point, they won't be in disguise anymore. They will come undisguised and show and reveal their savagery and lawless revenge. Because how dare you, slaves and drudges, how dare you start to talk about equity and justice and how the damn society is supposed to be run. You don't know a goddamn thing. You ain't smart. You just a laborer. That's the grassroots, all right? So the film goes on to say that the Paris Commune was influenced heavily by what? Anarchism. And again, although anarchism cannot and will not work, we need it.
Yep.
We need it because anarchism gives the elite that perspective of what could happen if these grassroots people get it in their mind to bust caps in some asses.
Right. Right. It's like Steve Coker said, you got to be able to, you have to have a faction that they are afraid of or aware of that could reach out and touch them as well. Because if they have no fear, then they're going to do whatever. But if they realize that, okay, if we do this, then some of my own, and it could be me, is going to be hurt. So you got to have that respect factor.
Now, in the past 2 episodes, I gave you all the reason why anarchism cannot be successful. And what was the reason that I gave you all as to why anarchism cannot be successful as a grassroots philosophy strategy? Y'all remember?
I don't specifically remember, but I do know they're gonna bring the troops in on you. One of them.
That's true.
Is it? Go ahead.
Keep on going.
Is it? Well, I'm guessing. I mean, I remember you saying it, but I don't know what the answer was. Is it because ultimately, at the end of it, you don't have the mechanisms you need to organize it? You still got to be able to run your own space. You run your own municipality, your government, or whatever. And tearing it down and tearing it up don't give you that. So that's my guess.
Well, Ken, anybody else before I get in? All right, Ken is in the ballpark, and he's correct. They're going to bring in the troops, but here's where I'm going with it. This is why anarchism cannot work as a philosophy or strategy. So when Ken talks about bringing in the damn troops, the military, and in America, you got law enforcement at the local level, National Guard at the state level, military, and all these other agencies at the federal and national level. The reason it can't work, anarchism, all of those people who are in law enforcement, who are they?
Grassroots people?
They just
regular citizens.
Yeah.
They just regular. But what are they receiving from those governmental agencies?
Money,
payment,
status, materialism, housing.
So the reason that anarchism cannot work, as I gave the answer before, is because without spirituality and culture, the first law of nature, which is what?
A law of self-preservation.
So now self-preservation is viewed as I, my, me,
Right.
individualistically, not being connected to the whole. So although the damn law enforcement and the military know that what they're doing is wrong, they don't give a damn because they know they got to get a check.
And you know, and it's sad and unfortunate that they don't seem to realize that at some point that could be me, and probably will be.
And that's why I say anarchism cannot work, because they are not going to look into the future. Like, they're not going to have those thoughts. They're just going to have surface level construct in terms of meeting whose needs, wants, and desires.
Their own.
They're not going to give a damn about the money. They're focused on themselves.
Yep.
And so from that overall standpoint, that's why anarchism cannot work, because somebody is going to, the capitalistic system is structured in such a manner that the average person cannot conceive of another way of doing this game. They can't even conceive it. Because now when you say, well, how would I pay for my car? With money. How would I pay for my house? With money. How would I pay for my food, my clothes, my children's daycare? These real things that are in their lives. See, at the core of plutocracy is this premise: intellectual labor capital is supreme to physical labor capital. Do y'all get that? The people who create ideas, they view themselves greater than the people who will work. And we're going to get into that with a quote. Do you all understand that?
They brought that out in this film.
Exactly. But I want to make sure that everybody understands it, because I'm going to prove what I'm saying to you from the film. But do you all understand that? The idea maker believes, I don't give a damn how hard somebody physically works for him. The person who creates, when you're a capitalist, the person who creates the idea believes that they are superior to you because they came up with the goddamn idea. Do you all understand that?
Yep.
Yep.
All right? Because this is at the core of this situation. Now, there's a film that we looked at last year when we got started with our film series that hits at the core of the Paris Commune and anarchism. What is that film?
V for Vendetta.
Exactly. Well, you're pretty good there, Cat. But you didn't know at that time.
Didn't have a clue.
V was the advocate of what political philosophy?
Anarchism.
Exactly. So V was trying to create that single spark.
That's right. And in the movie, it worked. Everybody came out with the mask on. Yeah.
And that single spark is the foundation for what political philosophy?
Anarchism.
And they believe in what? What is it also called? Propaganda of the D.
Oh, of the D, yeah. But is it correct to call anarchism a political system?
Yeah.
I guess a political ideology. I guess it is ideology, yeah.
It's a political philosophy.
Philosophy, okay.
The philosophy. It's the philosophy. But the philosophy, see, you can't, see, therefore, look how crazy this is. And here's the other thing that makes anarchism a retarded philosophy. Let's say you're successful. and you take over the government, who you gonna blow up then?
Well, at that point, it will be no need to blow up anybody because you've achieved your goal.
So now you got to change the goddamn philosophy.
Well, maybe it's a means to an end. And I would just think, and when you said that, I'm thinking, okay, if you have the support of the grassroots, which is most of the people, and wait, I see what you're saying. Never mind. Yeah, because at some point you got to do something with that philosophy after you take over. I got you.
You see what I'm saying?
It goes back to what you were saying about the money. All they got to do is pass one black bag, and then somebody else gonna start getting blowed up.
Right.
See, that is not an intelligent philosophy, because at some point, the people who you're saying you're trying to create opportunities for, when you all get into power, somebody's going to have to leave. So if they've never now learned how to do this, and you built your whole premise, if you don't like something, just go blow it up. That ain't never effective. Because now you're going to have some anarchists inside of your new government who says, wait a minute, they ain't doing what they supposed to be doing.
You gonna get blown up.
and I hate to keep injecting, but I'm gonna tell you like this: to prove your point and to bring some money. I know being a former military, you can really identify with this. Or anybody familiar with the military? What happens to veterans when they come home and they're disillusioned?
Exactly.
Yeah, they start killing folks. At least the white ones do.
Get in watchtowers in Texas and all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I say I'm glad that they did it, because it gives rise to what we're doing. But that can never be. That is not even the remote well thought out, because at the end of the day, if you believe you're going to achieve leadership by using violence, you better believe there are going to be some people who are going to get disgruntled in your organization, and they're going to do the same goddamn thing.
Yeah, which is why you got to have them first two pillars. So no, whoa, not against us, against them.
Okay. Now, the other reason that makes the anarchists, and they targeted the plutocrats for death. The other reason, and they were successful now with some of their hits, but it never created that single spark that unified all of these workers throughout the world. And the reason it never would do it, because, and this is kind of crazy that they would even believe this, but it shows their real naivete and immaturity of understanding the game, the philosophy system and game. They believed that if they took out J.P. Morgan, Chase, DuPont, Rockefeller, Carnegie, boom, we got them out the way. But in a system, what now happens, Brother Tamani and Brother Ken? In the system, if the quarterback is knocked out, what now happens? Is the game over?
The system falls apart. So if you don't have something to replace it, it's going to just fall apart.
Now you ain't listen to the question.
You get the backup.
Say that again?
You get the backup quarterback.
If you got a backup.
You goddamn right.
Yeah, but you got to have a backup.
No, you're not listening to the question, Brother Tamani.
Okay.
They're attacking the individuals, but the individuals have created a system.
Right.
So in taking out the individual, if they take out the individual, what now?
Oh, I see what you're saying. From a power standpoint, yeah, they're gonna put in the backup and the backup and the back. Yeah, no doubt. Amen. Yeah, I gave Tara the answer. I want her to feel good about herself this morning, so I text her all the answers. So whatever she says, I gave it to her this morning.
They put in the goddamn backup.
That's right.
Okay, let's prove the point. Who is one of the richest? Isn't Bezos? Isn't he one of the richest people in the world?
Yep.
Yeah.
What happened this week?
He quit.
He put in his backup.
He putting the goddamn back
That's
up.
right. Right. And you know he's still getting paid.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's still his company.
He's just moving to the chairman of the board.
Right.
He's no longer going to be the CEO. But what is in place at Amazon?
The system.
A chain of command, a system, a hierarchy. Yeah.
A system. So the anarchists, you're retarded because Carnegie, Mellon, all of them had already put systems in place.
Right.
You see? Now if they would have got them before
if they would have got him, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Hold on. Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
All right. If they would have got him before they would have put the systems in place, now you would have had a chance. But once the system is in place, the system is going to have backups. And some of those backups are going to be better. They've learned the game from the leadership. So they're going to be better at running the team than the leader. You see, that's why all of this is in place. So that makes no sense. You got to create your own system within inside of the system. The anarchists they were constantly focused on trying to force people who ain't never going to change their system to change their system to accommodate them. They'll make certain allowances, but they're never going to change the system. All right. All right. So the next thing, the labor conditions were deplorable in the United States, and capitalism is predicated on the creation, maintenance, and expansion of a permanent underclass. So what was going on in the United States was also going on throughout the world. And they said United States was worse than any other industrialized nation. Historian William Taft wrote that the United States had the bloodiest history of any industrialized nation in the world regarding labor movements. Now, what ethnicity, or we'll put it like this instead of ethnicity, what color, what phenotype were the majority of these 99% of these labor activists?
White.
All right. So connect the dots. If the plutocrats were willing to do this to their good white brethren, what would they do to us?
Hug us?
See, they've proven what they are willing to do. And you go back to that. Did y'all ever see the Kings of Comedy?
Yep.
Y'all remember the skit that Bernie Mac did? And Bernie Mac said, Negroes be talking about, hey, motherfucker, I'm gonna blow this motherfucker up. I'm gonna blow this motherfucker. Bernie Mac said, you ain't gonna do a goddamn thing. Negroes always be talking about, you gonna blow this motherfucker up. But there are cats who don't look like us who will really blow this up.
Yeah, like I said, when they say by any means necessary, they mean it.
They mean it.
Yeah. To this day, they mean it.
So Tamani hit on the fact of the whole concept of dynamite being created in 1862. And like they said, it helped on both sides, but it allowed grassroots activists to compete in the violence game against the plutocrats. But it never elevated to the point where the single spark did what they thought it would do. But it did create fear.
Yep.
It did create fear. And so
and you know something else that was interesting, Brother Craig, real quick is I can't remember the guy's name, but he planted dynamite around the whole city.
Yeah.
And was going to blame that on the workers or the strikers. And it's interesting how the power structure from then to now the power structure will put things in place, violent acts to blame somebody else so they can get involved with something or take power. They did it with the Vietnam War. They did it with 9/11. I mean, they do stuff so they can get involved with stuff.
And so now you go back, and that connects to current times, as Ken was saying, the Proud Boys.
Yes, sir.
Grandmaster Jay. And so one of the unfortunate things about knowing all of this kind of stuff and then being behind the scenes in politics, you try to help people understand how the government operates, because this is a form of counterintelligence, COINTELPRO, and you start to see that this stuff was going on way before the 60s,
yes, sir,
way before the 50s, and they were using this on their own people. And so it's like you try to explain it in a manner where they get it, and most of the people don't get it. You see what I'm saying? Most of the people don't end up getting it, and that's what we have to engage our people with understanding. Because if you don't get it, hold on one second, y'all. Hold on one second. If you don't get it, you'll keep on repeating the same illusion that you're going to be able to do certain things that you're not able to do. And then you'll keep on getting infiltrated. Christopher Simpson, who is a historian in the film, he wrote a book called The Science of Coercion. I'm damn sure going to get it. All right, Sister Fumble, we'll see you tomorrow. But Christopher Simpson did a great job of breaking down the revolutionary concept of propaganda of the deed. But people still to this day, no matter how advanced the United States is, they still believe they're gonna get some goddamn guns and do something. And it's kind of crazy, but this is just the reality. Okay, and we got to know that that's not going to happen. But in that Wall Street bombing, 38 people were killed, but not the intended target, who was J.P. Morgan Chase. And guess who ended up getting killed?
The common folks, the tellers, and the regular street folks.
Okay, so working class people were killed. So you got to be real careful with those concepts. There were two labor revolutionaries, who were set up by the government, and they were very effective. Seiko and Vanzetti, and they took them out. The government had them electrocuted, but they were framed for a murder that they did not commit. So these are the types of things the government means by any means necessary. We just be talking. They mean it for real.
And they got the power to back it up.
Exactly. Yeah. But all of that was in the intro right there. Once we get past the intro, now we get into first major thing that they put in, the mine workers. I love this quote, and this gets to the point, and I want us to really talk about this, because this is really, we got a lot more to get through, but this here we got to hit on. This is a quote from William Big Bill Haywood, who was the labor leader of the National Workers Association. Listen to what he said. The mine owners did not find the gold. They did not mine the gold. And they did not mill the gold. But listen to what he says. But by some weird alchemy, all the gold belonged to them. What does this quote tell you? And let me read it again so y'all really get it. The mine owners did not find the gold. They did not mine the gold. They did not mill the gold. But by some weird alchemy, all the gold belonged to them.
It just goes back to your concept of the idea.
Exactly.
The idea belongs to the owner.
Yeah, it alludes to what you were talking about at the very beginning.
Exactly.
Where the idealism is more powerful than the actual work itself.
Exactly. Anybody else? All right. So that's what it gets down to. The intellectual labor capital is viewed greater than physical labor capital. And y'all need to understand, for grassroots people, hybrid, we got to be able to produce the intellectual property, and we got to be willing to do physical work to earn the respect and dedication of our people. And this is what I said about this quote. I said that William Haywood, he just didn't understand intellectual capital is viewed at a higher level and skill than physical labor. This is why we must have grassroots hybrid. This is where we come in. Because if you don't understand that the intellectual capitalist, the capitalist views intellectual property, intellectual labor capital greater than physical labor capital, you'll never understand capitalism. But the coal miners mobilized and organized for better wages and working conditions. Who was treated, what entity was treated better than the goddamn coal mine?
The donkey.
Incorrect.
What?
Incorrect.
I object.
The mule.
Same damn thing. You knew what I meant.
No.
You knew the animal. You knew what I meant, man. Come on, context, please.
You gotta get it right.
I should have said the pig, huh? You be like, no.
No, because the mule is a crossbreed between the donkey and the horse.
I'm going to call bullshit on that. Tomato. You knew what I was talking about.
No, you really need to know that, because they create a crossbred, the mule, so it could work all day during slavery. And at the end of the day, that's how they knew they could crossbreed up. So that's a very important point, because a donkey could not perform the task of a mule. And they didn't want to waste a horse, so you crossbreed both, and now you get that. But damn mules were treated better than the goddamn mine. And so I said here, capitalists were just straight gangsters. Because the way they looked at them goddamn miners, shit, one died, shit, fuck it, we'll just get enough. We can't be replacing these good ass mules. Goddamn me. We done crossbred the damn horse with the donkey, but that mule is more valuable than these hillbilly ass folks in these mountains. So the hell with them, we gonna save the mule. But 15,000 miners took up arms, and they had already made mention of this in episodes 1 and 2. I love how they use the subject matter and it cross-references each other. I mean, they do a very good job of that. And the miners got busy. You know, they took up arms, but to their damn retarded mentality, they really believed that they were Americans. And since a few of them had fought in the war, they didn't want to shoot, because you do know who was called in once they went on strike, right?
The military.
Yeah, the goddamn military was called in. So now some of them have fought in World War I, so they didn't want to take up arms, and this was the Battle of Blair Mountain. The anarchist philosophy is based on a concept that they call anarcho-syndicalism, and I'm gonna have to research that, but that's something that we'll check out. Something else that was very important, the premise of the plutocrats was if we knock out the leaders of the union, then we can kill the goddamn movement. And the reason I pointed this out is because you'll often hear people say, we don't need leaders.
Yeah, which is absolutely crazy. Which is absolutely crazy.
This shit is the craziest. It's the most retarded shit. I mean, it's crazy. Everybody can't be a goddamn leader. I'm sorry to tell you. Everybody's not born to be a leader. And though you need to do some leadership things in your household, leading people and doing leadership in your household is a little bit, it's just a little bit different. A lot different, goddamn. So, but that was brought out in terms of the plutocratic game plan to take out the leadership of these various things. Now, what wonderful Christian organization was used by the federal government, reinvented by the federal government, and used by the federal government to put a foot in the asses of white folks?
That would be the KKK.
Them 3K niggas. Y'all need to come on back. Y'all need to come on back.
You mean to tell me that the damn KKK wasn't just used against black people?
What?
And I didn't know that. I had no idea they were
in
Colorado and California. I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah. Man, the government ain't no joke, bro. They gangsters for real. So y'all thought when Tamani introduces me as an intellectual gangster, y'all thought I'd just be using that term. No, bro. No, bro. You're going to have to be gangster in this game because these people play no game. They play no game. So I said here, the KKK were not just used to kill and intimidate African descendants, but labor organizers as well. Because you going against the system.
Yep.
And so if we have to take y'all ass out, we'll take you out too. I got to research this concept, the situation that happened at Liberty Hill, because that was brought out. And this author, Sinclair, wrote this book called The Jungle.
I want to read that, by the way. That's like a good book to read.
And so this was referencing the conditions that a lot of these white folks were working in. Now, mind you, while all this is going on with white folks, with their labor movement, our ass is still in goddamn segregation.
That's right.
So we were just coming out of chattel slavery. Okay. So yeah, they don't get no sympathy from me at all. But I did want it to be understood that the system will be protected by any means necessary. All right. And then they got into discussion between socialism, the Socialist Party, and communism. And that was very important. And they talked about how the Socialist Party, you had